Hi, it's Lel from Made by Marley. Welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to be doing a vintage sideboard. It has a mirror which is sitting over there. I'm still undecided whether it's going on or not, so we're going to forge on with this. So keep watching and I'll show you what I'm going to do. You're probably wondering why this piece is already painted and you're not getting the whole rundown of what happened, you know, cleaning, washing, painting, etc. This happens not very often, but when it does happen, it's just paint. You just move on. I had already started a design on this piece. It was a very sort of cottage core sort of style, but I realised quite quickly that the design I wanted to put on it was too large for the piece. It needed something a little bit smaller and it wasn't working for me. So I pivoted quite quickly and I painted it with 2 coats of green paint, and I've painted the mirror part and the feet black. The black needs another coat of paint. That's what happens. I mean, you don't confuse that from halfway through your piece and go, oh, it looks a bit, that's a different thing. If you know from the beginning that it's just not working, and even if you step back, you go, I'm not going to keep throwing at things like this. It isn't working. Stop quickly and move on. So it's had 2 coats of green paint. There's a design under there. It's now had 2 coats of green paint and the legs have had 2 coats of black. It's been thoroughly cleaned. It's a really nice piece. However, I'm super excited about this one. I think you're going to love it. So you've not lost anything by not seeing me go, oh, I'm painting it green. It's done, right? That's all you need to do. Now, normally when I do a decoupage piece, I always stick to this rule, and you should always stick to the rule of a pale colour under your decoupage paper. However, the decoupage paper I'm going to be using today is this one here. It's from CC from Redesign by Prima. It's got some beautiful crows and some birds, and I've worked out it doesn't matter which way you have it, which means you can reverse it round. Now I've got 2 sheets of this. This is actually quite reasonable. So I've got 2 sheets of this for the top, for the bottom, and if I use the top, some for the top. But I'm going to deconstruct it the best I can, do a bit of blending, try and incorporate some stamping and possibly some stenciling to make this really exciting. I've kind of picked out the colours that I'm going to use, and we'll talk about them as we go along. However, when I folded it over, I quite like the sort of, the more you fold it, the more you see it's darker. So I thought I'm just going to start with a dark colour. So this is going to be cut up, and it's going to go on the piece like this. Not here, but this is how it's going to look when it's applied. Now this is my first time using this decoupage paper. Never used it before, so I can tell you and let you know what I think at the end of it all. It's like, you know when you have an operation and they put the paper hat on you? It feels like that. It's mulberry paper, so it's more fabric-y than paper. So I'm interested to see. I won't be applying this with lacquer. That's another thing that I never do. Decoupage paper I always apply with lacquer. I don't think, because this is so thick, I don't think this is going to wrinkle, so I'm going to apply it with Mod Podge onto the piece, and we'll see where we go from there. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of deconstruct this the way I want. Now, as I said, I have 2, and if I deconstruct them the same way, it means I'm going to have symmetry. So I'm going to go on to set up, and I'm going to show you just quickly how I'm going to start cutting this up. My apologies for the state of the studio floor. It's a working studio, so it's a little bit messy, and my old skanky green rug that I sit on, just ignore all those. Just think I'm in a beautiful white pristine studio. So it's really raining outside, so I'm having to speak up because I'm quite quietly spoken. I hope my microphone covers up all the rain that's battering off the roof of the stable. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got my 2 sheets of my decoupage paper. Now I'm not quite sure how to tackle it, whether we're ripping it. I don't think we're ripping it. I think we're going to cut it. And this is another sort of no-no for me. But however, now I'm going to cut like this. I'm going to take this leaf and I'm literally going to cut this crow off here, because this is the crow that I want. And I'm going to go round and get this flower here. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. These crows are going to go somewhere round about here, I think, on both sides. So I'll cut out the other crow. And then the next thing I want to do is I want this stamped part as a border, but I'm going to just fold it for a minute because I want to just cut off this top edge here, and I'm going to try my best to make it reasonably straight. I'm just going to go along, try and line it up a bit. I'm going to take this off because I don't want this blank piece here. I don't think it's come out straight, but I will deal with this as we go along. Let's get rid of that. Let's see. It's reasonably okay. So, because this kind of pattern piece is going to go up the top where my drawers are. I'm going to be quite bold with this, so I'm going to roughly kind of get my sort of bearings. And I think I'm going to put it on this way, like this. So I just need a sort of rough kind of dimension here. So I'm thinking about here. So I'm just going to cut this. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? Because I've cut to here, I'm just going to cut along here. And I'm going to do the same with my other piece as well. So I'm going to get on and cut up what I want. And then we'll get to gluing and sticking it on and then making it all part of the piece. So I've cut everything up, or for at least the front. And I'm going to show you on this side. And then I'll go away and replicate it on this side, glue it on, and then we'll start all the blending and everything else we've got to do. So as I said, I've never used this before, so this is a little bit of, I think, a little bit exciting for me. My positioning for this part, because I want to avoid having to go around this edge here. I'd rather it went straight, and it can bend in these parts, but, so I'm thinking round about here, just where that ends. So I'm just going to get some Mod Podge, and I'm going to I think I'm going to apply it quite, it's really heavy paper, so I'm going to let it drip everywhere. I'm going to just apply it really liberally, like quite a lot on. I think it might have helped if I'd got a bigger brush actually. Whoops, ignore that. I don't think this is going to be difficult to apply. I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of wrinkles, so I've got all the usual suspects for doing it in case it does, but I think it's just a case of, I think it's going to be absolutely fine. I just want to try and work out some of those little brush strokes there. There now. So you saw me, I've applied quite a lot of Mod Podge. Now I want the scroll to face in this way, so, and I think I'm going to do, I want to apply here, and then you've got this little groove to go in, so I'm pushing into there. I'm going to have to maybe put some more Mod Podge on there. Now I've got a lino roller here, because I think that might be the best way to work with this. I think for these edge parts, you're really going to have to laden up your glue. Bring that down. Make sure you get all your edges. So it's just, oh, I'm making quite a mess here. I'm just going to do that. Pull out and smooth out anything that you think is going to leave a big wrinkle into this groove, into this groove. I really want to try and work it into this groove. It's deactivating some of my paint that's on underneath. I'm just going to get a rag and do this. Maybe this kind of paper isn't the best for, oh, I'm spilling Mod Podge everywhere, for going round edges, but I think you just have to work at it. So that's that on, and what I'm going to do is, while it's still, do you know what, I'm going to change my brush because this is getting silly now. Try one of these. I'm just going to go over the top. See, I should have did that from the beginning. I'm just going to go right over the top of this because I'm not sure how this is all going to work out and how well it's going to stick. So I've got a little bit of bleed through here. My paint maybe wasn't quite dry in that edge, but that's not a worry. We'll get all that when we blend it in. So you saw me apply this piece. I'm going to now apply the piece up here that Martin's a bit concerned because the wing's going to be upside down, but I told him not to worry about it, so hopefully he won't worry too much. I'm not worried about this part up the top, and I'm not worried about this part down the bottom because I'm going to put stamping and things on here, so I'm quite happy with that. So I'm just going to apply this part now and apply the bird, the crow on this side, and then we'll by that point we'll be ready to start blending this all in. So right now it's not looking particularly pretty. I've put the decoupage paper on and I'm wanting to blend these flowers to at least here. So if you look at these, I want white on the background first before I put my orange. So what I'm going to do is literally do something like this to butt up against here. And it's going to take, I think, a couple of coats to get this the way I want it. So when you're blending, if you imagine what's going to go underneath now, it's a little bit white. And I'm going to have to come down here because this is a white flower as well. So right now I'm just putting this on it as a sort of background colour to here. I want my flowers to come out to about here. And I've got a leaf here, but that's done in different colours. So once I think I've got it the way, I think that bloom's probably going to go there. I'll blend that out with a different colour there. Quite happy with that there. I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Now I've mixed up this sort of colour. Now it's not quite right. It's not quite right at all, but something just fell in it before. I don't know what it is. I think it's something from the stable ceiling. Let's pick that out. Right. So it's not quite right, but it's there and thereabouts for this colour here. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start bringing this round here. I think it needs a little bit more green in it. But I mixed it more to match down here. If you see this colour's here. See if we can kind of and it's definitely darker there. So this is just going to take a little bit of time. You've seen me blending before. It's not, it's not going to just all come together in the first sort of coat. I'm going to just carry on here with that. I need to make sure there's more glue on there where this blue flower is, because that would be quite a good base for the blue. And we're actually going to come along and put some of this in my white, because as you can see by this here, it does look this sort of kind of, so that might be something that is going to help that. Blending is just looking at what you've got and making it all look like it's one, and it just takes loads of time. And I'm not going to sit and ask you to watch me blend every single part, so I'll come back in 5 minutes when I've done a little bit more and I'll show you what I've done. Okay, so I've got a little bit more of this blend onto it, and now what I'm trying to do is I'm using a palette just because palettes make it slightly easier. I'm just trying to recreate this same flower here, make it a whole flower, if you know what I mean. So I'm kind of continuing this here. And then there's a kind of white patch, and then this paler one kind of goes sort of around here, and we're going to the darker sort of colours here. And this is where you've just really got to be patient. You're just building it up to make it look similar, so the eye kind of just doesn't think that it's not the same. It fits in. I can really see some of my colours need to be a wee bit darker, so that's why I put my paint on a palette, because then what I can do with the paint on the palette is I can adjust them, adjust the same shade but make it a little bit darker. So that's me kind of darkening that shade up. So let's see how this looks on it. And I'm just going to mix and match until I've got this more like it's a full flower and it blends into there. That's what I'm going to do here. I've put this limey green on because that's going to be the background to these darker leaves here and this sort of pinky colour for these flowers here. And I've started to blend this part out, and I've put some white on before I start putting the birds on. So I'm going to do this flower and these leaves, and then I'll come back again. Okay, so I've blended quite a few things in, and I just want to point out what I've done so far. You can't really tell that this was a decoupage paper. I've painted in the flowers, just painterly, sort of pale colours with some different colours to make it look like there's a kind of row. I've painted in these green leaves. I've painted the leaves round here and some stems going through. I've made this, where it cuts off here, look like all one set of sort of blue flowers. I've done the orange because there was only half of this flower, and I've filled this in. And I've done this part here. I've done a big leaf and I've put some green. I have this one here left to do, which is going to be something similar to this, or a suggestion of this one. And I've put my sort of lime in, so I'm just looking to do something a bit like, I'm trying to get it right up but close to my paper. Now what other colours, and there's a kind of khaki brown. So let's just see what I can magic up for that sort of colour. This is why it's good to use a palette. It means that you can make, you know, your own colours. I'm just going to add a little bit more. It's going to be a little bit burgundy, I think. I'll add a little bit of white to that. And then a bit of orange, I think, should. And then I need to put my green back in. Yeah, I think I'm there and thereabouts with this sort of colour here. So we're going to just do some suggestions of this, blend it into there, and then put a little bit more green on top of that, just to kind of blend that in. That one. Something like that. And I'll fiddle about with this off camera just to get it. You don't want any of these bits where your decoupage doesn't meet. So you can see that's the power suggestion. This is the artwork. This is the painted stuff. It all kind of works together. I'm going to go off and I'm going to do the other side to match this side, and when that's done and both sides are dry, we're going to get on to doing some stenciling work and some stamping work, or maybe just some stamping work, either or. And then we're going to start sorting out this band here, this middle part. We're going to just stamp probably the sides, and then we'll work out what we can do with the remainder of this for the top, because I'm going to put the mirror on the top. So that's where we're at. Okay, so this is done, the other side is done. We're not worrying about the mirror just now, or the sides, or the top. We're just going to finish off the front first. And I'm wanting to build up in layers, and I was just going to stamp it, but then I realised I had a Redesign by Prima transfer. It's called Mono Tulip. I have this, and I'm just going to deconstruct this and put some of this on it, and then I'm going to stamp round the edges up round here, and that completes. We might have to do a bit of blending up on that edge here, this edge here, and we'll finish off this crow. That sort of completes the front. So how I'm going to cut this apart is a mystery to even myself right now. So I'm going to start by cutting it. I want to keep some for the mirror part as well, and I don't want to use a whole tube. It has to be kind of reasonably cost effective. Although this decoupage wasn't too expensive, and I'll get Martin lovely Martin, to drop the link in the video so that you've got the costs and things, but it wasn't like hugely expensive, and I bought two, so, and I had the paint and everything, so a wee bit of this is okay. So I've cut it up. I think I'll put my glasses on, just in case I cut halfway across the tulip. And I want to have a wee look at sort of positioning. I'm thinking I'm going to stamp in this section, so I'm thinking maybe, I want this first and then the stamping, not the other way around. And I think I might do something like this coming over. Something like this, I think. Just to fill in this gap here in the middle. I had this piece of decoupage paper that had stuck on it, but it just wasn't doing anything. So I'm just going to be quite bold and just go for it, and we'll see how we feel about it once we've done it. Now I'm going across doors here as per usual. It's nothing simple. So I think I'm going to go for this sort of positioning here. Get your handy dandy transfer tool and make sure that it's all sort of adhered first. And I'm just going to go on and I'm going to put this one here, and then I'll show you the positioning of the next one. And this is going to be the positioning for this one. And just going to apply this on here, and then we'll talk about a little bit of stamping and what my sort of intentions for the front are going to be. I've got a top tip. What I do when you come up against a cupboard door, I cut it gently with a Stanley knife blade, and then I fold over my transfer paper so it's quite chunky, but it has to go in this thin gap. And then what I do is I feed it in so it's kind of wide again, so it's pushing on both sides, and I run it up and down inside the cupboard doors like that. It's burnishing them inside the cupboard like that. That's how I work that out. Okay, so we've done that, and I am happy with that. Yeah, I'll get to all of that. There's kind of like, I'm kind of seeing some of the original yellow, the sort of kind of creamy colour that was underneath, and I'm going to sand some of that back, so I'm not too worried about these little bits here where there's some little bits showing. Now, this and this has no white, and we've introduced white now, so at some point in time we're going to have to introduce white, but we will do that. We will work out how we introduce the white as we go along. The next thing, I think that's all I'm going to put on the front. I don't think we need to go crazy. I have Bohemian Floral stamp. This is a new one to me. I've not used it before, but I'm super excited because, as you know, I love all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to be doing something like this along here on that part, and possibly, maybe that's a little bit wide. Let's see what else we've got here. Maybe something, maybe like this, down here. Yeah, and put the heavy. So it probably look more balanced if I put the heavy at the bottom. Do you know what? I'm just going to be bold. I'm going to put it at the top and the bottom of just this section for now until we get to the rest. So I have my stamp. I'm not going to bother putting it on anything mounty, or I'll just get my ink. And I'm just going to be totally bold. I'm going to use black ink on this. I don't need a crazy amount, but I really think I would rather prefer it to be kind of a bit like this. So I'm going to try and avoid about this much either side, so from about there and there. And you could mask it off with painter's tape if you were worried about it going over, but I think you've watched me enough to know that I laugh in the face of things like that. So there we go. I think I've got enough, and I kind of want to get this part here. So we are pushing down all over. Whoop, I shifted a little bit there. Pushing down here, pushing down here, making sure that we are pushing down everywhere. I already can see I shifted a little bit, but there we go. So we're going to do that there. Aha! Now, I really just want a hint of this part here. So I might just, I'll just go straight across here at the bottom. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ink it, but I'm going to try and avoid this section here. So try and avoid this section here. I should use a cloth for that, not my hand. So I'm going to ink it again, right to the edges this time. It's just so that it's not showing, covering up too much of my foliage. It's a bit high, so we'll see how this, see what this works. And I'm just going to go straight across with this one. So again, we're kind of just using our eye here, and I'm going to do something like this. And I'm not too worried about this bit here. I can paint that back in green if I want to. And I think I've already worked out a way to start bringing in a little bit of white. But it has to kind of work across the piece, so let's do the stamping first. So I didn't put any ink on that part here, so just making sure, because we're going over a bump here and a bump here, so you're not going to get it right to the edges, but you want it there and thereabouts. I'm just going to have a little keek at this side and just check. Keek is a really good Scottish word for a wee look. Just in case you wondered. I'm sure Martin struggles when he has to do my subtitles. Oh no. And a little bit of the transfers come off, and it's stamped. However, if you're smart enough, I can just pop that back down there. I'll kind of tidy up this area here with just an artist brush in a minute. I'm a bit concerned that that came off. It might need a bit of glue on top of it. Any sort of smudgy, dirty areas. This part here doesn't, where the bottom of that leaf looks a little bit untidy. So what I'm going to do is, if I can, I'm just going to use my nail and get rid of that. Just be bold. Yeah, there. And if I can try and, now this is something you should never ever 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 do. You should never go back over. Just trying to work out what parts they're missing. I think it's this sort of part here. So let's have a wee shifty here and see if we can just put enough on there to fix my little area that didn't stamp so well. There we go. Right, okay, happy with this now. Now the next question is, do we carry this along? I think I'm going to just do the edges on this, because just the first section, it doesn't matter if it doesn't go into this part here, it looks like it's going literally nowhere right now, so we'll do this just to carry this piece along here. Just going to do the same on this side. So I'm going to go on and I'm just going to kind of stamp where I think needs stamped, and then I'll come back and show you where I've stamped, and then we'll work out how we're going to pull the white design into this now, how we're going to put some white into it. I've done the stamping, I followed it along here. You saw me do this part. I put some here and some here and some here and some here. I'm leaving these negative spaces. I think that gives it room. I'm not going to do any more. But what we're going to do with this white, it's glaringly obvious that there's a lot of white in it now and there's no white anywhere else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a white acrylic pen, and I am just on these parts here, just going to colour them in with white pen, like that. So I'm just going to go around anywhere where that shape is in the piece and do it white. I also picked out an orange and a blue, So I think, see this orange, I'm going to make this flower here orange because that works with this one here. I'm just going to colour these ones in here orange, all over the design. So here's another orange one down here, and I'm just lightly touching it with the acrylic pen. It's just to pull the whole design together. And I've got a blue to match here, and I think I'll do something like I want to have it that it's, so I'm going to just in here, I'm just going to do, oh, and I just need to change the nib over. It was obviously a fine line I was using that day. I'm just going to do those. So this is going to be a little bit laborious. It's like everything I do, it always takes forever, right? So we're going to do that, and so I'm going to go across the whole of the front, doing that to all of these shapes to pull it in, because when everywhere I've done the white, it'll really pull in. We still have this band here to think about, and I'm probably going to stamp it with this stamp here. The choices I have are pretty, unless I use this one here, but I just use this part, I'll put it on that way, but you're not really going to get any detail. Nope, I think this one here is the stamp for me, and I'm going to go along there, and that kind of breaks up this line here where the draw is. Yeah, so I'll go on, colour it in, and I'll put the black stamping on there. I've filled in the crow up the top here. I need to try and do a wee bit of blending where this isn't straight here. And I'm going to base coat the legs, another coat of black, and then we'll get onto the sides and the top. Okay, so off camera, I did what I said I was going to do, and I used acrylic pens to paint in these. I put the white to carry the design over. I decided that I needed something a little bit more zhuzhy there, so I used a stamp going down that side. I've kind of dirtied in the edges, and we'll go back with that with some dark wax. I've obviously followed this along here. I put the orange stamp just on this kind of vacant space here and over there, and I did some little white bits of stamping, just kind of as if they were kind of distressed along this edge. That's all I've done. I mean, I've just did what I was going to do, but I've just added these extra. Now, down on the ground here, we have the mirror, and I'm just beginning to decoupage on the parts I had left. So I've decided I'm going to go with the florals at the bottom and 2 crows at either side. And just as before, you just get your Mod Podge, and I'm not too worried about this overhang here. I'll cut it off with a razor blade. It's just so that I didn't want to cut it too short either. So I'm just going to go on, and I'm going to apply this all the way along, and then we'll get some blending down this bottom area. And once we've done that, we'll be getting on to doing the rest of the design. I've popped on the decoupage, it's nearly dry, and I've put a little bit of blending just in between it, not too much because it was a whole line. Oh, I need to make sure that part there is really glued down. I've got another couple of pieces of the transfer, which I'm just going to, the Mono Tulip transfer, which I'm just going to apply before I do the stamping. And I'm just putting these on both kind of coming down from the top, sort of kind of accents on. I better put my glasses on, see what I'm doing. Just do this off camera because the last one was really tricky to apply, so I'll just go on and do that. See if you're watching me put a transfer on. So I'm going to use this stamp. Now I've already decided this top part here I am going to paint black once it goes up onto the piece, because the feet are black and it just ties it all together, sort of kind of rounds it top and bottom. So I'm not too worried if any ink gets onto this patch here, but I'm going to try and get this part here onto this part there. So let's see what we can achieve. Maybe not a good idea to use your mirror as your surface, but I mean, this is when I have to make a decision, because it is a curved surface. What way it goes, I think probably I want it to go sort of this way. If you get any mirror ink on your mirror, just use stamp remover to clean it off. And if you make a mistake with your stamp and you're using self-sealing paint, you can use ink remover to get rid of it if you want to try again, kind of thing. So don't worry too much about that. So I'm going to go on, I'm going to stamp from here to here on both edges, and then this little gap here and this little gap here I am going to fill with one of these orange stamps. And we're getting kind of close to where we need to be here, so I'll get on and do that. Okay, so all I'm doing here is just using the same acrylic markers that I used on the top, just to pull in the blues, the orange and the whites, just kind of make it more cohesive. This part now is going to go in a minute up on top of the piece so that I can see them both together, and I'm going to go just off camera and paint this piece black, and then we'll kind of reconvene. Okay, while the black round the top is drying, I was struggling to find the hardware that went with the piece, and so I have, because I need thin ones for the bottom and I want sort of handles for the top, so I've found these vintage ones which I am just going to use enamel on and then seal them. So I'm just going to go off and I'm going to literally just paint these black. They're going to need a couple of coats, but oh, my glasses. But I'll paint these black ready for the piece, because I think black's going to be the colour that probably works best. Okay. So this little band up the top of where the mirror is, I'm just applying some gold gilding acrylic on here. It's going to need 2 coats, and I'm going to touch the feet as well with a little bit, and I'll just show you the hardware quickly. I didn't have matching hardware, but I think this is going to work really nicely. So I've painted this black, so this will be the top of hardware and this will be the bottom hardware. And what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of this gold, I'll just show you now, just a tiny bit on my finger, and what I'll do is I'll just rub it across it and give it a little bit of a gold highlight on the relief. So I'll do that too, so that the hardware is ready to be put on. So just something like that, just a little hint of gold, just to kind of zhuzh it up even more. Yeah. So this is me just doing the feet now. I've just taped it off so they're both equal. I'm just doing the front too, and this again is going to need 2 coats. I might accent some of this off. I'd kind of tried a little bit along here, so I might just kind of do a little bit of gold just on here, just here and there, nothing too crazy, maybe just a wee bit here on the edges, just here and there, but that's probably enough. That's all I'm going to do. Okay, so what I'm doing here is sometimes furniture needs to be painted inside. It's too grotty to sell and you're not going to get rid of it that way. They need the complete package and they're paying for it, so they should have exactly what they want. However, sometimes I paint pieces that don't really need much done to them inside. This one's a kind of halfway house. What I've done with it is, I don't know if you've ever used the product Big Mama's Butter. It is fantastic. See, for old drawers, this was really stiff, literally glides, and it smells beautiful as well. So I put that in the inside of my drawers, and what I've done in here is a Big Mama's Butter to condition the wood inside, and then for all these little chips on the shelf here, I've just used dark wax just to kind of tidy them up. You're never going to get the insides unless you paint it, you know, absolutely perfect, but a really nice clean up, a really good freshen up. When your customer gets their furniture, it smells lovely and they think you've put loads of effort in. Now, the front of the piece, if I just close the doors, all I'm going to be doing is, with a different cloth, is I'm just going to be applying a little bit of, actually, Big Mama's butter around here. I ended up putting a little bit of gold just on this edge here and on this edge here, just round here. Now, you've got to be careful when you put dark wax on, because you've got to remember this is thicker decoupage paper than I would usually use. So I'm trying to avoid that. So I'm only really going to run a little bit of dark wax just in here, just to give it a little bit of drama. That's as far as I'm going to go, and I'm just going to go like this with my hands. I think I'm going to do this on this edge as well. This is all self-sealing paint, but you can wax over the top of that and it'll just cure like ordinary wax. I'm not clear waxing here because I've got good control, because it is self-sealing paint, so it's got a top coat on it, and I'm just going to kind of go around the top and the bottom like this, just to kind of age it, just here and there, nothing crazy. We're not going crazy here. So I'm going to condition and clean inside here. I've already Big Mama's buttered this drawer. The gold's on, the mirror's been cleaned, the coppers, the gold's been at the top. I've done the feet, I've got to remove the tape. And what I'm going to do with this dark wax is, say the black paint, I'm just going to kind of ebonize them with this wax. Just gives them an extra kind of, it gives them a little bit more depth if you do that. So I'm just going to do that with my legs. And then we'll be at staging. It's finished. I kind of could imagine where it was going, but I'm super happy. It's even better than I thought. What did we do? So it was previously going to be another design for me, but the design didn't suit the piece. So I had, when you started watching, I had been given 2 coats of green. It's self-leveling paint, self-sealing paint. So that's what happened in the beginning. Then what we did was we used Prima Re-Design paper, and I initially wasn't quite sure about it. It's different feel to paper decoupage, and it goes against all the things that, you know, decoupage paper that I use. You usually can rip and wet with tissue, wet with water and pull it apart, and it's fibrous, so it's easier to blend. This had to be cut up because it's mulberry and leaf in it, so it's really thick. However, the finish on the piece, I absolutely love it. It is so durable. I think this is going to be really last for years. I applied it with Podge, which is another thing that I never really do with decoupage paper. So that was all a whole new learning curve for me as well, which is great. Then we did some stamping. I penned in with acrylic pens a little bit of detail to tie in the white transfer. The transfers were applied. I stamped the top. I put the decoupage paper along the bottom of the mirror. I did some gold. I did some dark wax, clear wax. I conditioned the inside. I put little gold feet on it. My handles were old vintage handles, mismatched, but they just go in the piece. I painted them black with metal paint, and then I gilded them. And that's just about it. That seems like quite a lot, but I'm really happy with it. This kind of quirky, unusual and different furniture sells for me. People come back and buy this kind of thing off me, so I think it'll sell really well. I can understand and appreciate, though, if you love farmhouse, then you're probably horrified. I'll try and get to that soon. So I've been Lel from Made by Mali. Please like this video, please share this video, please give us a thumbs up, and please subscribe. If you're watching and you've been watching me and you're not quite sure about me, but keep going. I mean, I'll grow on you. Please subscribe, and just to say that Martin and I read all of your comments, and we're both really overwhelmed by the comments. They're lovely, and it's nice to know that somebody's actually watching me, and it makes this experience so much better. So I'll see you again another time. Thank you.